Beginning, the girl nobody could see. On the orbital city of Verelion, invisibility wasn't a superpower. It was a caste. The Thalen species evolved translucent skin that refracted light. Most citizens shimmered faintly, outlines visible like heat haze, elegant, luminous, admired. But a rare genetic variation bent light perfectly. No outline, no distortion, no reflection. True invisibility. Those born with it were called nulls. And nulls were inconvenient. You couldn't address someone you couldn't confirm existed. Social rituals failed. Etiquette collapsed. Entire cultural norms depended on visual acknowledgement. So over centuries, society adapted. They pretended nulls weren't there. Not cruelty. Just practicality. Lyra had lived 22 cycles on Verelion and had never once been looked in the eyes. Doors opened automatically because sensors detected mass, not because someone held them. Food dispensers activated because a request was logged, not because a server smiled. She spoke rarely. People responded to the air beside her voice. Children once ran through her in a transit corridor and apologized to the wall. She didn't cry anymore. You eventually stop when no one notices. The human arrives. The day the human came, she only learned about it because the city announced an off-world visitor over the public resonance network. Humans were new, a recently contacted species from a distant spiral arm. Fragile, opaque creatures that relied entirely on visible interaction. They fascinated the Thalen. They terrified the nulls. Because humans required eye contact. Lyra stayed in maintenance tunnels where she worked calibrating environmental nodes, a perfect job for someone nobody interacted with. Until the ladder slipped. Her tool case fell from the upper gantry and clattered onto the corridor floor below. She sighed softly and climbed down. Someone else was there. A tall figure in a travel suit crouched beside her scattered instruments. He spoke in accented Thalen through a translator collar. "Hey, these yours?" She froze. Humans couldn't see her. He must be speaking to the empty corridor. She stayed silent. He waited, then carefully picked up a small calibrator and held it forward, directly toward where her chest was. Not guessing. Aligned. Her breath caught. "Yes," she whispered. He smiled warmly. "No worries. Happens to me all the time." He handed it to her. And didn't flinch. Didn't pretend. Didn't look around confused. He looked at her. Her voice trembled. "You can see me?" He tilted his head. "Of course I can." Her world stopped. The first conversation. His name was Daniel Reyes, Cultural Liaison for Humanity's first exchange program. He explained casually while helping her gather tools. "Your species bends light around you," he said. "Human eyes evolved for pattern detection, not just light reflection. You're faint, but definitely there." She had to sit down. Her entire life, invisible, undone by a species that didn't evolve here. "Everyone else ignores me," she said quietly. He frowned. "That's terrible." "No." "Normal." He shook his head. "Not where I come from." She studied him, though she knew he couldn't see her expression fully. "Why are you talking to me?" He shrugged lightly. "You dropped something." That's how conversations start. Simple. Obvious. Revolutionary. Before leaving, he paused. "By the way, what's your name?" No Thalen had asked her that in years. "Lyra." He grinned. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." And walked away. She remained frozen in the corridor for a long time. Someone had spoken to her as if she existed. Middle, the human who noticed. Daniel began visiting the maintenance sectors daily. Officially, he studied infrastructure integration. Unofficially, he talked to her. At first, she answered in short phrases and used to sustained attention. But humans filled silence differently than Thalen, not avoiding it, just resting inside it. He described oceans, rain, sunsets, concepts Varelian rarely experienced inside its orbital shell. She explained resonance harmonics, communal dreaming, and shared emotional broadcasts. He listened. Actually listened. One day he arrived holding a small object. "For you." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because I thought you'd like it." A polished metal bracelet, reflective, etched with tiny patterns. She stared. "If I wear it, people might see light distort." He nodded. "Exactly." Her voice shook. "That would make me noticeable." "Only if you want." She slipped it on. For the first time in her life, a faint glimmer marked her wrist. She almost cried. The problem with being seen. Word spread slowly. Workers noticed a flicker moving with purpose. Some became uncomfortable, others curious. But attention is dangerous when society isn't used to giving it. Officials summoned Daniel. "Your interaction disrupts cultural equilibrium," they said politely. By talking to someone, he asked. "The null condition maintains social efficiency." He frowned. "Efficiency isn't kindness." They requested he reduce direct engagement. He didn't promise anything. Instead, he invited Lyra to the public gardens, a place she had never visited because crowds flowed through her like water. She stood beside him under glowing flora as citizens passed. For the first time, she didn't feel erased. Because one person acknowledged her continuously, it changed everything. The moment the city noticed. During the annual Luminal Festival, every citizen gathered in the central atrium, a sea of shimmering bodies forming patterns of communal harmony. Nulls never attended. Lyra watched from an upper balcony. Daniel appeared beside her. "Come with me." She panicked. "They won't see me." "I will." He guided her gently into the crowd. At the center platform, participants introduced honored guests. Daniel stepped forward unexpectedly. "I'd like to present someone important," he said into the translation field. Confusion rippled. He extended his hand toward empty space. "Her name is Lyra." Silence. She trembled violently. He didn't drop his hand. After a long moment, she placed hers in it. Gasps spread as her bracelet shimmered in midair, proof of presence. Daniel spoke clearly. "You taught us about resonance, connection beyond sight. But you ignore someone who exists simply because perception is inconvenient." The crowd stilled. "She's been part of your world her entire life. You just never looked." He turned gently toward where her face was. "And where I come from, we treat someone we value like royalty." He bowed. Deeply. To empty air. The entire atrium watched a human honor a person none of them had ever acknowledged. Lyra broke. Tears fell freely as she realized thousands were finally aware she stood there. Not fully seen, but no longer erased. The shift. After that day, everything changed slowly. Citizens began addressing nulls verbally even if sight failed. Technicians created harmonic badges producing faint audible tones, marking presence. Children learned to greet unseen classmates. Not perfect, not instant, but irreversible. Lyra became an advisor on inclusive interface design, ensuring systems recognized individuals beyond visual confirmation. She often stood beside Daniel during council sessions, not as hidden friend, as named participant, ending a queen without a throne. On Daniel's final day before returning to Earth, they returned to the maintenance corridor where they first met. "You changed my world," she said softly. He shook his head. "You were always there. People just needed reminding." She hesitated. "Why did you keep talking to me that first day?" He smiled gently. "Because existence deserves acknowledgement." She laughed quietly through tears. In my culture, those who restore social balance are given highest honor. He raised an eyebrow. What kind? She placed a hand over his. The title closest in your language is Queenmaker. He chuckled. I didn't make a queen. She shook her head softly.
No.
You treated someone invisible as if she already was one. Ships prepared for departure above the glowing city. For the first time in history, a null stood among the farewell delegation openly, a faint shimmer beside the crowd. And every citizen bowed, not perfectly aligned, but sincerely. Lyra stood tall, not invisible, not special, simply present. And that was more powerful than any throne.